Realizing hustlers living lavish. It turned a blind eye to them addicts when it ended tragic. Rolls on the concrete, get thrown on your homie casket. And watch the pastor rape the pockets of the holy masses. Grandmama lottery winnings, winning that wicker basket.
All right, welcome back everybody to the second season of Complicated Simplicity. This is your host, Christopher Lee. And I'm excited because we're starting a new phase. It's the same podcast as before, but with a few new wrinkles, new changes, and now new people. So the purpose of the show is still the same. You know, it's still the same way of getting different points across and touching on different topics that aren't normally discussed or are normally discussed, but we're just giving our input, intake, and being raw, unfiltered, and just giving you our truths. So without further ado, as I mentioned, there are now two new co-hosts that will be joining us this season. And I am first going to introduce Tony and allow him to say a few things about himself so that y'all can get acclimated with him. And then we'll go to the second co-host. So Tony.
All right, cool. Well, I'm really excited to be here. I've listened to this before and I think it's very insightful, but it's also giving us a kind of voice, people who think, critically think and have this kind of perceptions and attitudes that we do have. So I think this is a great platform to be a part of and just experience with it. I like the way that it's growing. And I think, for me, I'm just a young adult from South Jersey, Black gay male. There's nothing really that profound, I would say, necessarily about what I do, but I do think that when it comes to voices that are typically on this kind of platform, I would like to kind of be a part of that experience and expand that kind of perception and the goal of this kind of platform. So I'm really excited to be a part of it. Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? And you're a lot more important than you tried to play it off to be. But that's cool. We're going to get into that. And then the second co-host is someone who has been on the show multiple times before. So she's not an unfamiliar to anyone, but I would like for her to formally introduce herself as well, since now she is an official co-host. So we also have Tiana as well.
Hi, it's me, Tiana, the 5-footer. Nothing really special, but I am the owner of 5-Footer Essentials. If you like indoor house plants, if you like natural soaps and body butters, I am your woman to go to. And Chris, thanks for having me on here. I can't wait. I'm excited.
I can tell. She said nothing important, but I do own a business. What? Anyway, so see how this is going to go.
A great business too.
Right. Business. You know what I'm saying? Thriving.
Guys.
I got random dudes that be hitting me up yo, what's up with the girl with the butters? I'm like, yo, man. Hit her page up. She got a whole website. But yeah, 5-Footer Essentials, for all your soap needs. People be giving me compliments on my skin. I do use it. Shout out to the turmeric bar soap. You know what I mean? So,
hey.
Yeah, shout out to that. But yeah, so we're going to start off just with what's going on right now that is happening to everyone, not just us, which is unfortunate, but it is where we're at. So I just want to, first ask y'all, and either one of y'all can jump in, how are y'all doing with this pandemic? Are you thriving? Are you struggling? Is it not affecting you? You going about your everyday life? What's going on with y'all right now?
That's a really good question, because it's how can you say por qué no las dos? Why not both? Because I am thriving, and it's a hard situation. I think the hardest thing for me to stomach right now is not only just the loss of income and stuff like that, but I'm having this kind of becoming part of that experience where you're starting to realizing how crappy our country is. You're part of this quote unquote great country that does all these amazing things, but we're behind when it comes to dealing with this pandemic. So you're not looking at it from an outside point of view. You're actually experiencing it when you still go out, cases are still up, but you still see people giving it a hard time. So it's I'm having a hard time with that, but I'm also doing well because gratefully it hasn't really hit my family or hit my life the way it has unfortunately hit a lot of other people. So that's the kind of dichotomy I'm kind of stuck in.
Right. And Ty, how you been dealing with everything?
This has been an emotional roller coaster for me. Like Tony said, I'm struggling, but I'm also thriving. Um, with my business, it's thriving. Everything's been great, but emotionally and mentally, I've been struggling. At first, it was easy for me. So I'm like, I'm a homebody. This is cool. I get to be home all the time. Great. But now I'm realizing I like to be home on my terms. So not being able to go out when I want to, see my friends when I would like to, being away from my family who live in Florida, haven't seen them in almost a year. So now it's like kind of playing with my mental. So like I'll have really good days and then I'll have some really bad days. So I don't know. It's been overwhelming for sure.
Well, no, I feel that, and the crazy thing about it is like this, I'm the same as you, as like, you know, I have good days and I have bad days, but I think my definition of good days are totally different than other people's at this point. I'll keep it up.
How
Being
so?
like, I've been struggling
Mhm.
like this entire time. Like my idea of a good day is if I'm not having a migraine, if I'm not having some other health issue that's probably related to stress or anxiety. Because I'm one of the people that's fortunate that I can work from home.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So like the whole loss of income thing hasn't really impacted me. But I didn't realize until this all hit that I do have an anxiety issue. I never had it before. And that, I think, me trying to cope and learning how to deal with it on the fly is where like the struggle part is coming from. Because not for nothing, for one, I thought, I'm not even going to put it in the atmosphere, but I did think that I had it. I didn't get tested at the time, but like I had a week where I was just down. I couldn't do nothing. I was locked in a bedroom trying to like sweat out whatever it was I had. I couldn't eat. I lost 16 pounds total, like over the course of like 2 weeks. It was bad.
Hmm.
Um, but they weren't allowing you to get tested unless you had like a fever over a certain amount, because this was early in
Oh,
the
this was
process.
like in the beginning of
Yeah,
it.
this is in like March, early April. So at that time, I had went to urgent care, and they basically was like, "Listen, unless you show these specific symptoms, they're not going to test you. So you might as well just go home." So dealing with that, um, worrying about, I had a family member die in the very, very beginning of it, which made it real for me immediately. um and then just like going through the different day-to-day learning, you know, things as they were coming about in the beginning, and then the numbers was rising, and now it's 1,000 people a day getting infected and dying, and the hospitals filling up. Like that all played so heavy on like my brain and my day-to-day, and I started missing work even though I was home. Like my migraines were that bad, and it was just because I was stressed and worried about my mom. I've seen my mom probably 5 times since it started.
Mm.
We live in the same town.
Mm.
That's crazy.
You know what
But
I'm saying?
the
That's
reason why you kind of didn't, but because the way you made that statement, like I've only seen my mom 5 times, like that's abnormal for you, then, right? That's
yeah, like
typical.
it's more normal for us to be like, hey, we're going over, you know, my brother's house and we're gonna have a barbecue. Like it's summertime. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Like that's a normal meetup spot. As a family, we get together, we hang out, or you know, there's church. You know, I might see her there. Just in any regular thing that, you know, is just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go hang out with my mom. You know, go past the house. Those things are like kind of out the question, and not because I can't go see her, but like she's also very um you know, conscious about how infectious it is, and you know, her being high risk and those type of things. So she kind of doesn't like, she's more prone, she's more open to us coming by now. But before it was like, nah. You know what I'm saying? Like I would drop off stuff to her door, like if she needed something, and then
So
like
it
just
was
turn
like a
around and leave.
mutual kind of like, because of the stipulations of what was going on with the fact, I wouldn't even say stipulations, the uncertainty and the unknown of COVID. Because when it first came out, we didn't know what
Nothing,
it was.
right? We didn't know
So
a thing.
everybody was trying to protect themselves. You being away from your like primary supports, like your family, your mom,
Mhm.
do you think that contributed to this like overall feeling of like low feeling, like anxiety?
It
Kind
definitely did for me,
Mhm.
for sure, for sure. I mean, it already was an experience. Not having my immediate family in the same state with me, and it was easy to just go catch a plane, see them, whatever. But now it's just like I can't see them at all. So like we've been trying to do things as far as FaceTime and have like family meetings and things like that over FaceTime, but it's still very difficult because like I want to be able to hug my family. I want to be able to hug my mom. I want to be able to see my sisters. Like, so it's definitely been a struggle for me not being able to do that.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I can see how it would definitely be worse on like your end because, like you said, those are the few opportunities that you would have where you could just like hop on a plane and be like, hey, I'm going to go see my family and get that affection that I can't get on a normal basis.
Right.
Where I can at least go see my mom. You know what I'm saying? Like I can just go pop up and visit, but like it's not the same when it's like that distance
Yeah.
in between.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
so
there are
it's rough.
a lot of it's like both of you guys' story, like you guys' like explanation of how you guys were coping with it, like they're both distressing. They're distressing. There's not like, oh, yours is worse, mine's worse. I'm not even trying to go there, but I'm thinking about like there are individual factors that influence to how worse it is that's specific to you. For example, Tiana was already in a situation where her family wasn't that easily accessible anyway. So this only made this much more of a boundary.
Yeah, it
between both of us.
exacerbated it. Yeah.
And then like, Chris, it's bad for you too, because like, hey, my mom is literally in the same town, but I can't even see her. So that's like a temptation in the moment too. Like I can't see you. And if you add this whole factor of like, okay, the process of getting there, the fact that it's still at the point where we don't even like what is this? What was the word for it? Like a asymptomatic individual. Like you
Right,
cannot
yeah.
have it. And heaven forbid you finally get a chance to be around this kind of family member that you've missed and you might have already had it or they might already have it. And now you're in a crappy situation.
Right.
So I think that is what exacerbated a lot of people's already kind of anxiety with it too, because just like shit, like I can't even I can't even this is something that's so dangerous that I can't even see. So, and then I might not be able to see it, so I might not be able to even experience it within myself. And some people might have like these overt symptoms. People might have these like no symptoms, and you're still just as contagious. So it created like this fear atmosphere with everybody. Like I'm afraid of everybody, not just my family. I'm afraid of all social supports, all kind of things. So It's interesting that that's how it happened to both of you guys.
And not for nothing, like with that whole thing, what you saying, like you're scared of everybody. Let me tell you, I'm watching everybody's social media. I'm watching y'all on the gram. A lot of y'all living your life like nothing is going on right now.
For real.
Y'all are not welcome. Like you cannot come over. No. You can pull up in front of the house and we can talk from my porch. That's as close as you can get. Like just
it's really scary just not know.
Put the mask on, right?
No. You really don't know.
You really don't. You really don't.
You don't. And
that's what gives anxiety because you just don't know.
Right. And then God forbid you finally hang out with somebody or whatever the case may be, and then you come home and you just sneeze about 3 times. Or you get that little cough. You got a little tingle in your throat. You're like, oh my God,
right.
Somebody gave me the Rona. Right. Like
it's over.
And then it creates that paranoia. Mm-hmm. And then once you create that paranoia in your own head, you can't get away from it because it's in your head. So now it's starting to embody itself because anxiety will physically make you sick by itself. Yeah. So it's just so much. But like one of the things that I wanted to also check in with y'all is like, what do y'all think like life is going to be like when this is over?
See, there reminds me of like this concept. Like I don't know if you guys, it's called like disaster fatigue. So individuals, we're so chronically exposed to the negative aspects of this kind of pandemic. We're constantly exposed to it in our media. It's reminded when we go to the shopping places. We're reminded because we're at work. We're constantly exposed to this kind of negative experience. So it's going to naturally kind of fatigue our perception. Like we're tired of dealing with it. So I think people are getting to the point like, I don't want to deal with this anymore, so I'm just going to go on about my life the way it is. While I personally am kind of like still skeptical of it, I will say that I'm starting to experience some of that disaster fatigue because in the beginning, I was scared to go out anywhere. Like I was very nervous. I have a lot of families with underlying conditions where like if they get it, you're done. And that's a very scary thing for me. So now it's getting to the point where I will run out to the grocery store. I walked in the wall without a mask on the other day, and I was just like, "Oh, my God, because I'm not as that. Like we're so tired of dealing with it every day, all day, everything like that, and it's just so interesting because as cases right now are still kind of rising, like nationally, we aren't acting the same way it was when it was first rising. They were shutting stuff down when it was first rising. Well,
Oh, we had a curfew.
yes, well, specifically up in the Northeast. In the South, it was kind of
Yeah.
different, but like in the
Yeah,
Northeast.
yeah.
But like,
Atlanta was still living life.
yeah, they was down there like just doing whatever they want to do, and now they paying for it. But
Right.
like, I think I'm starting to experience that kind of like I'm tired of this. It's not in a sense of like I'm tired of like what this means for our country, what this means for other people's safety. I'm tired of dealing with it because it's this constant chronic stress every day of thinking about it. So I'm getting kind of like desensitized and tired of it. So when it comes to like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I adjusting to it now? It's like, it's becoming a part of my life, but also becoming a part of my life is this kind of like this kind of a cynical kind of skepticism. Like, oh, whatever. Well, y'all ain't there right wearing y'all mask, well, y'all gonna die. And then guess what? You die. So it's like we hear that's kind of rough, but it's the truth. Like,
It is.
And then you die.
think about it. Like, if we looked at the numbers when it first started happening, 1,432 deaths a day was alarming. Now it's not as alarming because we're becoming so accustomed to this kind of disaster. We're getting so exhausted because we're overexposed to it, and that's what's scary to me. Even though I can feel it, I can't really stop that kind of perception that I'm starting to be like, oh, well, thank God we don't have 2,000 deaths, and it's kind of like, no, one death should be enough. This should stop. And I think that's what's making America so different compared to other countries. Because other countries like, no, shut this shit down. America's
Right.
like, whew, we're under 2,000. So that's a good thing. No, 2,000 people died. That's a lot.
Mhm.
That's where I'm at with
Right.
it.
I definitely feel that. I think like I'm trying to create habits to make this feel like it's a norm for me. But then I feel like my anxiety is coming back because I keep hearing about this second wave. I don't know what that second wave is. I don't know what's going to happen. So now, because of the unknown, I'm worried now for what's to come in the fall.
Right. Yeah, and I feel that, but I've literally gotten to the point where I kind of tuned out the news and all that kind of stuff because a lot of it is fear based. Like they try to create the fear. Not to say that we shouldn't be fearful of it or at least take it serious, but I mean it's to me I've gotten to the point where the only way I can cope is if I'm going like one day at a time. Like I'm not making like these big grand plans. I'm not one of these people that's like on social media. Like if you're not leveling up right now and coming out of this with new skills, like fam, I'm trying to
Literally just trying to
survive.
survive. Yup.
Yeah, like I'm in survival mode. Like I'm trying to make sure my mental health is and my physical health is the most important, and those that I love. That's the most important thing to me right now. Like all this other stuff where everybody's like just trying to take it somewhere where it don't even need to be. Like it's not that deep. Then people mad about the people that were getting like the extra $600
Oh,
on their unemployment, and they're like, oh, why ain't you investing that and using that to start a business? Because that's not what it's for. It's so that you can pay your bills and not be evicted when this is over.
Yeah.
Not to risk it on a business that may not yield tangible income for 6 months or whatever the case may be. Like it's just so much that I think people are adding on to it. There's already enough stress that this issue is causing or this pandemic is causing on its own without people adding more to it.
I'm
So
pretty sure with both of us, sorry to cut you off, but I'm pretty sure
No, you
with
good.
like you, Tiana, myself, we all know somebody that had that come out their mouth or posted something like that.
Yes.
So that means they're kind of in our reach and we are able to like this isn't like something like that's not normal to us. Like a lot of people are saying that right now. But what does that do for them? Like what does that statement kind of prove for them? Like what point are they trying to make, if that makes sense? Because I'm so like, okay, you just easily explained, Chris, that people are trying to survive off of this money. They no longer have this kind of adequate income, and this is just to make ends meet in kind of an unpredictable lifestyle that we have right now. So that sounds very reasonable. But on their end, they're like, no, you should be using these kind of new resources that you have, despite the ones you just lost, to kind of build this quote unquote empire. So why would they choose that side? Why is that side so seductive?
Ty, you can take that.
I, I
Because I only say that because you're a business owner. So,
well, I don't know. I just personally feel like people just always got something to say or just always want to be mad at something. Like, I don't know if people get this information from social media or where they get this thought process from, but I don't know why people think that that's how they need to be using the money. I don't know why people aren't thinking the first thing we're in a pandemic. A lot of people lost their job. Who are getting it are using it for reasons of catching up on bills, making sure that they have money to survive through this. So I don't know why people feel the need to be mad at someone for getting funds to use that. I don't know.
right.
It
So,
really makes no sense. I feel like people lost like compassion and like
yeah.
empathy. Like I
That's
feel
a
like
big
that's the
one.
bottom line, and people lost that.
Right. Because, like, I can understand if, not actually, I was going to try to, like, play devil's advocate and play the other side. But no, I actually don't get it because, like, unemployment is unemployment.
Yeah.
You literally don't have a sustainable income right now. And if you're in a situation, now, if you're 19, 20 years old and you live with your parents and they still working from home and like your home is secure, you know where your next meal is coming from. Yeah, maybe you can do something extra with your money, but I don't think those are the people that are getting the extra 600 anyway. They just getting regular unemployment. So the people that are getting unemployment and getting that extra money, like it's literally to maintain what you currently have so that you don't go under. That's all it is. And the fact that people are pocket watching other people and monitoring what they're doing with their money when the only reason they even have that standpoint is because clearly they have some type of stability and they may still be employed in some fashion. Like, why are you worried about what other people are doing with their money? If you're an investor, you do what you need to do. Like if you find somebody that wants to join in, cool, but you should not shame anybody else for simply using the money for what it was created for,
Well,
what the provision was created for.
that's where I'm kind of still stuck at with this because I agree. You shouldn't be shaming people, especially at their time of their most vulnerable. Like they're very vulnerable at this point. And for a lot of different things, financially, emotionally, physically, we're very vulnerable at this point. Tiana said a really good statement, like that I want to expand a little bit more. She said that people have lost empathy and compassion. And I was like, I agree. And I was like, do I agree? Because I'm thinking, did people lose empathy and compassion, or did this pandemic expose this kind of lack
That
of
they never
empathy and
had.
compassion that we already had in our society? And that's what I'm starting to become more aware of, because it's easy to live in this kind of, comparatively to a lot of other countries, America probably had it really, really good comparatively to other countries. So when we had that kind of privilege taken away from us, and we're kind of seeing how hard, life can actually kind of be, especially non-industrialized societies, we have this overwhelming kind of privilege. We have access to clean water, electricity, our family are close, we're living long ages, we have access to an abundance of food. You just don't have the money right now, but the government has the capacity to even give you the money, and people are still choosing this way of spewing this kind of venom. So I'm thinking like, well, that's capitalism. That's the world that we live in when it comes to our country. So I don't know if they necessarily lost it. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate to Tiana, but I think while some may have lost it, I think this pandemic gave an opportunity for a lot of people to expose something that you already did not have. You did not care. You did not have that kind of compassion, because any kind of well-minded individual or empathic individual, or this compassionate, genuine, warm individual, that wouldn't pop in their mind, because that didn't pop in our mind. That's why we're so appalled by it. Like, we don't even think about that. Why are you even thinking about that? But for those people, that was so easy for you to create a meme, post it, and then shame people who right now are very vulnerable. And I'm saying like, okay, if that's where we're working with, why? What does that do for you? What does that function? Like, does this reinforce this kind of belief that you are more superior, or is it kind of like a facade that you're manning it through all of this, in reality you're not? So like, that's where I'm still stuck at.
Yeah, and I think for some people it's a facade, and for some people I do think that's genuinely their only way that they know how to live at this point, because some people have gotten to a point where that's their lifestyle, and they sometimes when you create your own world, you no longer understand the other one that you may have left behind. So if you're someone who's just simply an entrepreneur, you don't believe in a 9 to 5. You don't believe in not being your own boss and having to report to somebody else and punching the clock and, having to have employment to have benefits. Like those type of things don't even cross your mind any longer because you've kind of created your own world and that's the one that you live in. So when you look at everybody else and they're not living in that world, it's like, that's where that whole woke thing comes. Like I feel like comes from. Yeah. Where people feel like, all right, so I've awakened, I'm woke, so now I need to wake you up too. And it's like, you don't need to wake me up. You're just in a different place. You have a different belief system and it works for you. And I'm not going to shame you for thinking a certain way versus the way you shouldn't shame me for thinking the opposite. I'm not one of those people that thinks everyone should be their own boss. I don't.
Everybody, that's not for everyone.
You don't have that capacity, right? Same way college isn't for everybody. People have different skill sets and things that make them special. And one of them may be that you can be the one that can start your own business and you can thrive and you can operate independently and you're a go-getter and you can wake up 5 o'clock in the morning and work till 1 o'clock in the morning, then wake up and do it again. That's not everybody.
And that is okay.
That is perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine.
So perhaps that's why it's kind of that shaming might occur. You being, not you guys, but like people who do these kind of things might engage in shaming behavior to reinforce their own hustle mentality, whatever it looks like. That also, for me, that also suggests that you're not that satisfied with what you have right now. If you have to shame for reinforcing kind of profits to make you feel better, you must not be comfortable or satisfied in your own output.
I agree. I think that is a lot to do with it, but I mean, I'm also not in that. Period. Pooh. Now, one thing that because I was asking about like when this is over, I honestly don't see no end in sight because people are so. We're just so divided. Like we're a country that everyone just does what they want to do, and some people want to wear masks, some don't, whatever. So it's looking like the only way that this is going to end, unfortunately, is if there is some type of vaccine. Yeah. If there is one, are y'all taking it?
I'm gonna see what happens to everybody else first.
But so I feel you. But the thing is, with vaccines, I feel like you're not going to see like an immediate response to it. It's not like, oh, I'm going to get it and then the side effect is going to come in a month where like I'm growing a third leg. Like that's not how the side effects of vaccines work. Like they could put something in it and then 20 years from now, everybody gets cancer.
True.
Yeah. Well, this is the reason why, for example, Russia just released information about we have a vaccine. It hasn't really went through these randomized clinical control trials where they're actually being able to really make sure that's an evidence-based kind of medicine that you're giving out to the public. Because if you're giving it out to all individuals, everybody's have different body physiological chemistry. So you have to make sure it fits with everybody. It can't be this one, it just basically needs to fit with everybody. So they're saying, well, yeah, and it was like Russia is very happy to say we're the first to make it. And then the US kind of criticized, it's not about being the first, it's about having the most safe vaccine. And that's the reason why these kind of randomized clinical control trials, which I know because of what I do in my work, you have to go through these because these are safeguards ethically for humanity. We have to make sure that everybody is taken care of this. If not, you could start some real crap and hurt a lot of people. It might work in the short run, but the greater long-term outcome can have you can be more susceptible to other things. You could have a little shorter life expectancy. You can have a lower quality of life. You might be able to live good, but you might have a crappy quality of life. It might make you predisposed, or your children who you haven't even had, predisposed to certain risk factors that we don't even know about right now, all for the sake of saying that you're the first. So I'm with Tiana. I would want to read the literature when it comes out, but literature can be so biased too because it's all you want to make some money. So I want to do that. But then again, I want to see also, I'm with Tiana with it. I want to be, I don't want to do it. And I want to see how it goes, for other people. But to me, that's a luxury that I have because I don't have any predisposed illnesses that make me vulnerable. For the individuals who have these compromised immune systems already right now, this might be your best bet, because this can be a suggested, like a light for you getting back to some type of normal lifestyle. So I have to take this kind of vaccine right now, so that way I can get back to my life and hope in the long run that there's nothing that happened. I just think that's just such an unfortunate decision that people have to make.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we have the luxury of having to make the choice of whether we want to do it or not.
Yeah.
And I've heard things about they're going to try to make it mandatory.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Like,
That's insane.
mm-hmm. I mean, it's one of those things where obviously, there's not one out, so they haven't finalized anything. But from time to time, like I'll see stuff online that I'll read, even though I don't watch the news. And it was basically saying like their first hurdle is, even if they come up with one, it won't be enough to give everybody one the first go round. So the first round will go to like the people that are most at risk.
Yeah.
And then after that, that's when they would start trying to do it. But it sounds like it's going to be like the movie Contagion, if anybody's seen that.
Yeah.
Where basically like you're going to kind of have to scramble, and it's going to be like a lottery system almost. But the only way for it to be effective is if everyone has it. That's the way a vaccine works. So, I mean, I don't know, but I'll give my personal opinion. If the vaccine comes out, say, a year from now, and the numbers are still where they're at now, and we're still living like this half quarantined life, I might that disaster fatigue might be kicking me in my butt by then. Like, I'm being completely honest. Like, I've left my house 3 times in the past 3 weeks, and I live alone. I just be in here. It's lonely, fam. Like, I want to be able to get back to like my normal life. So I do think that there's more of a chance of me considering it than me just normally being like, no, because I don't take flu shots. I don't take none of that stuff. I don't want to, but this is something different. And I feel like it's going to force us to make a more difficult decision than just saying like, nah, I don't do vaccines and that's it. Like, I don't think this is going to be that same type of scenario.
So I can we stick with this for a little bit, because you were saying one of the indicators that you might kind of take the vaccine is because loneliness has been damn near unbearable for you.
Yes.
And that that vaccine might give you the possibility to take away that kind of loneliness for you.
Right.
All right. So what are some ways that can take away your loneliness other than a vaccine? Because even in that...
Nothing, Tony. I'm on my phone all day long. Ask anybody that texts me. When you text Chris, you get a text right back, because my phone stay in my hand. I can't wait for somebody to hit me up. I'm telling you.
I mean, can't you still have small little gatherings? Maybe still.
Heck no, because niggas be out at the bar, at the outside bar with no mask and having house parties. I don't trust nobody. Like, I'll have, like, when I have people over, it's usually like one person at a time. And I did have a 4th of July cookout. We all stayed outside. That was cool. But it was mainly my family, and I know my family has been quarantining. The reason I know they've been quarantining because I haven't seen none of them. Like, none of them. Like, so like we did Facebook chat, the Zoom calls. Like, yo, man, I don't know what else I could do. This is what I'm doing. I restarted the podcast.
Well, no. See, like,
hey, y'all.
Let's talk about that. Okay, you figure out something to decrease the feelings, like the negative feelings of loneliness, and that was starting up your podcast again. So you're making these active choices to try to, combat those feelings. What else can you do? Like, I'm thinking, while all jokes aside, the vaccine might be seductive to you for that reason, and I'm not invalidating that. That's what you feel. But also, I think you're a smart, insightful guy. Critically think what other things it could be. That you might cave more into getting a vaccine right now because you're running out of all good ideas and good ways to kind of combat this loneliness. Because what happens if you get that vaccine and that doesn't really change that feeling of loneliness for you? Loneliness is such an arbitrary kind of feeling. It's subjective. So what other things can you do to add on top of that to make yourself not feel so lonely? And I think that's what us as a society are having a hard time doing, because we're like, whoa, we're such a humans are such, this tribal, social kind of individuals where we thrive off of human connection. When that's taken away, we start to see, wow, we don't really have that much self-care for
See,
ourselves.
and that's what's been, I guess, the good part of the pandemic for me, because it's allowed me to, I guess, kind of reset my personal life, reconnect with myself, heal, more self care, really sit with myself and try to understand myself more. So there's so that aspect of us being in the house, that I guess has been a form of coping for me as well. Being able to sit with myself, think more, reflect on things. So I'm going through a lot of growing pains right now as well. So that I guess has been the good side of quarantine and ways that I've been coping through this.
How though? Because I think Chris is kind of reflective of
Journaling.
Okay, so journaling.
That's been a big thing. Journaling, writing every day, my feelings, I guess trying to get into a routine. My plants, that's been very therapeutic for me. I guess getting into my hobbies, being able to be more productive with the business. I think for a lot of people don't have hobbies. People don't really know themselves outside of work, their kids, whatever they have socially going on. And I think maybe people are just lost. And that's where a lot of the hiccups come in, with people, I guess, feeling lonely and not being able to deal with the pandemic.
I think it's the fact that it was so abrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the main thing. I think had it been something that we could have meant, and not to say that you can mentally prepare for a pandemic, but had this been something that wasn't so, like, I remember the day that they told us that we were going to be working from home. It was literally like I was talking to a customer and then they were like, yo, log off. You got to pack up your computer. I'm like, what?
My God.
Like not, you're like, yeah, you got to take your computer home. We're going to be working from home, blah, blah. And like, everything just happened so fast. And then the information came so fast and it kept changing. And like, it threw the balance of everything off. So to answer your question, Tony, like, do I think that there's things I could do? Yes. I've looked into, there's a business thing that I'm looking to start in the near future. Like I've thought about starting school again online. I've seen a lot of people improving their health. So, and I do want to like shout out the people. I'm not going to do it individually because I'm going to forget people, but there's a lot of people out here that are like getting their health together. They're going out running, they're riding bikes. They got stuff set up in their garage, some like the few gyms that are open, not the official ones, but like the little recreational ones, like they getting it in there. Like, I think those are all great things. Most of those things for me personally are not going to take away the loneliness aspect. I'm still going to be going to school by myself. If I'm doing a business, I feel like I'm going to be doing what most Americans do, and what most Americans do that stresses them out is just simply occupying your time and overloading your schedule to take your mind off dealing with your actual healing that needs to take place as it pertains to your mental health and your physical health.
Well, that makes sense. That I get that point. I'm just hoping that a vaccine will give you that opportunity of that kind of level healing, because I think a vaccine gives you an opportunity for doing the kind of behaviors that was so therapeutic before. That's what I'm hearing for you, Chris, because it'll give you the opportunity to also do it again. But what I'm also hearing with like Tiana, for example, she's like, yeah, I lost that. Let me search for other opportunities too. And she found opportunities that worked for her. And maybe you searched for it and you didn't find opportunities that did work. I don't know if that's discouraging you, or if you're like, oh, I just know for a fact and I know me very well and I'm not trying to challenge that. I'm just trying to say that's just what I hear is like that's such a strong gamble to hope that a vaccine gives you back that kind of that kind of outlet to release some of that loneliness, when yes, it can give you back some of the things that might influence overall connectivity and like happiness and things like that kind of like are the opposite of loneliness. But I also, is it like, again, like as insightful as you are and as like, critically thinking as you are, I think there's perhaps could be some other things that we just still didn't explore. And I'm kind of speaking to myself too, because that is something I found out I don't like. I don't like being alone. I don't like being away from people I care about. But the feeling of being lonely, I found out that I don't like being with myself that long either. And my time with myself right now is so unflourishing, and that kind of feeling of unflourishing and lack of productivity within myself. A lot of my identity was tied to my work. When my work was taken away, who the hell is Tony? A lot of my identity was tied to my relationships with my family. When that's taken away, who are you? And I think I had a hard time. That was what was most distressing. That was contributing to my loneliness, because I'm like, oh, you thought that you was some hot. I don't want to curse. You thought you was some hot crap, didn't you? And you thought that you had this all in control. But once you had those two things taken away, which can be taken away, coronavirus or not, you can lose your job, you can lose your family without the coronavirus. So if that can be taken away too, who are you? What makes you, if somebody was able to define who you are, is it these kind of surface level things? Well, this is what I do for a living. These are my kids. This is my husband. Okay, that's great. What else? And then people get lost right there. And then, like, for example, in some of the work I do, a lot of the individuals I was seeing for services, they were expressing that COVID was a stressor, work was a stressor, but being exposed to home life over and over again, even if they had family there, was equally, if not more, distressing, because they're finding out like, whoa, some of the decisions I make, I really don't like this. I like this part-time. I like my marriage part-time. I like my kids part-time, but I don't like it full-time. And I think that was what people are getting, like, oh, me admitting that is some shame. Me admitting like, oh, you don't really know yourself. Me admitting that I don't really like hanging around myself, and I don't really think I'm, hot crap and everything like that. That's the bad thing. I'm not going to admit that. And that's what I'm finding out with myself. That's why I'm trying to share it to you to see, like, is that where you're going? Is it like,
not really. I think it's just more so it's kind of like what Tiana was saying when it was like, I'm a loner. I am. But I enjoy being around the people I want to be around when I want to be around them. And once that's stripped away, it creates a void that can't be filled or hasn't been filled up to now with things or other hobbies. Like, that void to me is very because I've had the same friends since I was 7. Like, I'm not a person that makes like a lot of new friends. The ones that are new,
all right, Drake, we get it.
They've been friends since for the past 15 years. Shut up, fool. So, like, I have all long-term friends. So I like, my friends are like my family. So the separation from them, the experiences, the things that we had planned, like, those voids are serious.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So, like, yes, there's other things, and I'm not one of those people. I'm not relying on, oh, let's find a vaccine and get this over with. By no means. But it's just I'm just being very forthcoming with, I'm not as opposed to it as I was this time last year when it comes to vaccines and shots and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's all.
I agree.
But one thing that I did want to like, with all this stuff that's been going on also is like, so we've seen like a resurgence of like Black consciousness, whether it be socially or economically, because over the time since all this has started, there's been the protests that's been prompted by like the George Floyd assassination, Breonna Taylor's murder, Ahmaud Arbery's murder. So these protests have been like raging on. Black Lives Matter is at the forefront of a lot of things now, even in our entertainment. A lot of companies have come out and took a stand. It's all over the NBA, all those type of things. And I think we're kind of like forced to hold a mirror up to ourselves as a country, because we're all home. Like, this is one of the first times like everybody's had to sit down and kind of deal with the ugliness of what goes on in this country. But what I want to know from y'all is, once this is over, once things have more so some normalcy and we're back to our daily routines, do you think this is something that's going to be sustained, or do you think it's kind of like a thing of the moment?
Tiana, you want to take it or you want me to go?
I can go. I'm a little torn. I'm honestly torn. Because I do feel like I see the unity. I see us being more prideful. I do see people looking for the Black owned businesses, but I do also see the tearing down still as well. I see like a lot of people like generalizing a lot of Black owned businesses still. Um I don't know, I still see a lot of the hate still. So it does make me weary, as if this is something that is going to be long term, or if this is just something that's in the moment because of what's going on right now. But I am I do see it. Like I do see like I said, I don't know. I'm really torn. I'm really, really, really torn. I'm not sure. Go ahead, Tony.
You know, I agree. I am very torn, but I'm torn with more on the side of like I think I tend to be a little bit more pessimistic about this. It's very unfortunate that, you know, these Black lives are being lost, and but what really disappoints me a lot, and it's not about with the Black community, it's about American society already. This is not the first Black life that's been killed against police brutality. This has been going on for decades, centuries, if not. Like, this has been going on for a long time. And I'm not trying to take it from your point of view that finally you're home and you're comfortable and you're in distress well where you can empathize with people that look like me. Why does it have to take you having to be also in distress for you to realize atrocity towards people that look like me? And that's why I have a hard time. These things that companies are doing, like, for example, certain cosmetic companies are like, oh, well, look, we have this amount of Black people working us. We pledge to make a difference now. You pledge to make a difference now. So when Keisha came over there down to HR and complained about her white boss over there calling her all kind of names and stuff like that, and all these microaggressions, you didn't address this because somebody put a spotlight on you right now and was holding you accountable for it. Now you want to address it. Therefore, is your change sincere?
I feel like it's trend. It's a trend.
It's trendy. And I'm just like, that sincerity makes sure it changes. Those changes, I don't need, well, granted, this is just my own opinion, of course, but that kind of representation is great. I need it. But there's a difference between representation and actual reform. I don't want to add more Black faces in there and then not get rid of the negative perspectives that's already in the room, or kind of hold them more accountable too. Systemic oppression and then, you know, all that kind of, this kind of deep rooted racism is much more keen than just me having another Black face in the room. That is, it's going to figure out a way to manipulate that situation too. When we were saying reform the police or something like that, it's not about taking the money away or something like that. We're saying like, no, you need to change the entire system that you're holding it, because at every specific level, not just the police level, the laws, the districts, all of those things like that are kind of negatively skewed towards negatively skewed towards Black lives. So that's what frustrates me the most. I don't need that kind of like, oh, look, we have, like, let me put a Black motto up here. We're so inclusive. We're not a part of the bad problem. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because the fact that we have to address this to you now and you're finally making this change now, you're not sincere. Therefore, you are a part of this problem. You're only doing it because it's reaction to make sure that you save your ass, in my opinion. Like, when it's the companies that's been like this, we already been on this trend, so we ain't got nothing to prove. We sit right with you as we have already been. That's a different kind of energy, but that's not what we're seeing. The common things are like, oh, now we're trying to show you guys that it's more Black representation. No. At every level, no matter how wealthy you get, you're still going to experience some type of oppression. You're still going to experience some type of this. So that means this is so much more than having another Black face in the room. That Black face or that Black person or that Black personality is going to be influential. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discrediting that, but that is not sufficient. You need more change. And that's what I'm thinking, like, that's what I'm thinking is changing more too. Like, and then also like the jumping on the bandwagon with other things and trying to like, oh, well, it's more of these kind of lives too. And I was like we're talking about Black lives. We're talking about, we're not talking about other people's lives. And that's indicative of what I'm stating. Like, do you actually know
how anything can be manipulated?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at.
No, yeah. Cause even with, so my stance on it is, I do think that something that will outlast this particular time that we're in is how many people are starting their own businesses. I don't think it's one of those things where it's like once everybody can get their regular job back, everybody's just going to go back to their regular 9 to 5. I do think that some people are having like a breakthrough where it's like, you know what? I can do this on my own, and I am creative enough, and I am making it work on, throughout these circumstances. How come I can't make it work when we don't have a pandemic going on? So I do think that part is going to last. The portion as far as the protests and the Black Lives Matter staying at the forefront until there are actual changes, that's the part that I am more pessimistic on, because I do feel like we have short attention spans, and there's so many different battles that are going on every single day and different distractions every single day. We're in an election year, and God knows it's about to get crazy. Shout out to Kamala Harris.
Yes.
It was just announced today that she is going to be the vice presidential candidate for Joe Biden, first Black woman. So, I'm definitely going to show love. Even I have some skepticism about her, but honestly, I'll keep it to myself because I would rather see her there than who we have and who could potentially be there. So I'm going to show her some love. so shout out to her.
You got any clap noises or something like that? Like,
do I got any claps? Shout out to Kamala Harris. You know what I'm saying? Throw the air horn, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, like, I just, that part of it where it's like, where we're keeping that focus and we're keeping that pressure on to actually see change, because we have seen change. I don't want to downgrade or minimize anything that's taking place, because like Tony, me and you, we've been out, we went out to protest together.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I've done some in Camden as well, because the mentoring program that I'm a part of, that's where it's based, and that's where I was born. So like, we went out there, and they've made changes out there as well. So there's definitely been changes. It's just that already I'm starting to see that there's a little bit of a tail off right now because people are worried about other things. And it's like, we really are getting to a point where while we have the spotlight and while positive change is being made, do not let up.
So are we losing the momentum?
Yes. I feel like the momentum is being lost. And I also feel kind of like the movement is somewhat being hijacked.
There you go. I agree 100% with that.
Did they find out where the funds are going with Black Lives Matters?
Oh, I heard about that.
Ty, I've been having that argument for years, because all this money that's being pledged, first off, one thing that I found out that I didn't even know, I had to go look it up, is that there's two different like Black Lives Matters type situations. There's the movement, and then there's the foundation. And no one can really differentiate the two. Mm-hmm. But apparently where the funds are being pledged to is the foundation. But I don't even know who runs that. And I don't think most people know. So that leaves all this money out there in the world, and we don't know where none of it's going, what programs it's funding, who's in charge of making sure that, everything is going to work. There's just so many moving parts. And I feel like that's every time is going to be Black people's downfall when we actually try to get what we want, is that we do not organize well enough.
I guess who will be considered our Black leader right now? Do we have?
Who knows? A bunch of self-appointed people.
Wait, you said a statement. I want to. Can you explain a little bit more? You said we do not organize well enough.
We don't.
What is well enough?
Well enough is to where, all right, so if we're out protesting, marching, saying we want change, we should have a collective idea of what that change is. Like literally have key points of what this movement is for. Because right now it's very abstract.
So targeted goals.
Targeted, absolutely. Because you can't, it can't just end at, stop killing us.
Yeah. Oh, well, I agree, because that was a point I was making, because that kind of ambiguity that we have perhaps with some of our missions that we want for equality and things of that nature might be leading to a company to say, or people to say, well, we did this. Isn't that enough? You didn't say that this wasn't enough. You're just saying like this is our way of defining it, rather than having these strong targeted goals. No, this is your benchmark that you need to meet. And this is what it looks like. And this is how you're not doing it.
instead of a $60 billion company saying, yeah, we'll throw $10 million at it. Now shut up.
Yeah. And then write it off as our taxes.
Right. They're getting it back.
Getting it back.
And it's not like they're saying, here, take this 10 million all at once and build a school.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, this is what we're pledging over the course of 20 years or 10 years or 5 years.
Mhm.
So it's like, we also going to spoon feed it to you as well. You'll get it as, we decide to. So like, yeah, I'm not really big on like just the abstract and the ambiguity. Wait, can you say that word again?
Ambiguity.
Ambiguity.
I have a hard time
Yeah, I'm
too.
about to take that one. So and how like we don't have any targeted goals. And I've always said, and another shout out that I'm gonna drop. They are finally making a Fred Hampton movie.
Oh,
Well, it's already
wow.
been made. And it's coming out soon. And yes, but like they kill all the people that want to organize and
And they
act-
whitewash their stories.
absolutely. So and I'm glad we're telling our own story because I believe Ryan Coogler is involved with this and he's been like doing a lot of stuff for us. So shout out to him. But yeah, like all of our leaders who actually would lay out plans. Look at like the Black Panthers, they whitewashed that and made it seem like it was just this terrible thing, but they had an actual plan for the community, what they wanted from the police force, how they were going to set up their educational systems, everything. Systematically, COINTELPRO ruined them. Same thing with Malcolm and Martin. Same thing with Fred Hampton. Everybody who rises to or it starts to rise to the level where they can unionize and mobilize Black people, something happens.
Mhm.
That's just how this country operates. So no, we don't have actual leaders for the Black Lives Matter movement or just for Black people in general because
We can't.
we can't do it. And then you got the people who just like you got the Umar Johnsons of the world who just try to tell everybody that they stupid and you're a coon.
Well,
And like I don't know how that's supposed to help me want to join your movement.
dog. Come on. I think I'm like, see now I'm kind of torn like Diana was too, because it's just
I
like.
think that's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go
Tony.
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I just said that's what makes me so torn because I feel like what companies are doing now, like Tony said, giving us Black models or giving HBCUs scholarships, and like they're like throwing us money. Okay, but like what does that fix in the long term for us? There's I need laws to be changed. I need to see Black representation within like the politics. I need us to be treated fairly in the prison systems. Like those are the real change, and what are they going to give to us as a people to really make a difference?
They're not going to give us anything that we're not asking for.
Right.
And that's what I'm going back to as far as we have to have targeted goals. That's why they'll just throw money to pacify the situation, is because it's like, you're not asking for anything. So let me give you what I want to give you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. See, and now there's another dichotomy. So I'm like, there was a first statement that you said, like, a lot of our Black leaders are kind of unfortunately taken away from us. And that's true. And the stories are whitewashed or misinterpreted, and it just becomes a complete mess. But then we still do have Black leaders that are around, but it's like, for example, OG Angela Davis. She's still around. She's still kicking. She's still doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, okay, let's disperse more of her responsibility to other people. Why is she still one of the only ones too? There's been many generations after her. I think a part of the Black experience, and that's a very expansive experience. I can't really generalize for everybody. Every Black person doesn't have the same Black experience, but there are a few things that we kind of learn as a collective group that is. Part of being Black is being reminded that you're Black and advocating for yourself all the time. Like all the time. It's like, I'm constantly reminded that I'm Black and I have to constantly tell you how you should be treating me as I'm Black. And no matter what I'm doing, I'm still getting the short stick out of all that. Because I'm still going to constantly. Message! So like that is like, voices like Angela Davis are these profound voices that we need in our community. But one of the things that makes me so upset or kind of discouraged is I'm like, they're like just sitting in high school. You're in high school or college or middle school. You see some other voices that are just as intelligent and intellectual, but these are paths that they don't end up going because of systemic oppression. It's so set up at every level to make sure that these kind of voices don't make it far. I'm going to make sure that that kid doesn't make it that far. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to make it that harder for him. So that way I can choose. No, you don't go into a life of prosperity or advocate these kind of things. I'm going to make sure that you make all the bad choices too. And I don't want to put all the responsibility because unfortunately some things we've kind of taken and we got to own up to some of our own faults, but we aren't our own villains in this story at all.
Yeah.
And I hate that that's what's trying to paint it at. Cause when they say the Black Lives Matter, it's like, well, this statement gets.
Then they'll bring up Chicago or black on black crime.
That's what the black on black crime that kills me, Chris. And like Tiana, like that. You tell me every time I hear that. Oh yeah, well you black people are killing black people. Okay, but now you're telling me, the reason black people. So why can't we kill you? What?
Right.
So you're changing everything, but the fact that we don't want black people killed. We said, "Hey, stop killing us." Oh, we're going to give you a black model up on here. We're going to give you more black representation. Did you stop killing us? Okay, no, then why aren't you answering at least that for us?
Right. And you know what's crazy about that whole thing is just like, we're not asking for much. Really? All we're asking for is when we do something wrong, arrest us like you arrest everybody else.
Real shit.
just let us go to jail. Let us have our day in court. That's it. We're not saying, if the person is guilty, let him go free.
No.
You can still arrest him. Like, there was literally just a dude that shot at the cops with an AK. And he got taken alive.
What color?
Like, how does that happen?
He was white.
Yes. They shot him in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
But let me have a wallet. Let me have a wallet.
What? I don't need it.
Not even have
we
a wallet.
don't want to take it that far. Yeah. Let me be here.
Right. Exactly.
Let me be on the scene.
Yes, I read a case last week that this man asked at his trial to be tried as a white man for.
That's gangster. I ain't mad at you, player. Whoever did that.
He was
Please try me as a white man.
That's serious. Unfortunately, that is so.
It was declined. Was it denied? Was his motion denied?
It was. But
if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
He asked.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Closed mouths don't get fed. You gotta ask. Yeah, whatever. Yo, I'm going to try that. Next time I get pulled over, I'm like, sir.
I'm definitely right.
Mr. Officer. Can we conduct this in the most Caucasian way possible?
Oh, see, this is, I don't know if this conversation is going to trigger me, but it's like making me feel like, the fact that he had to ask that, like, for example, like a black man had to be asked, can you try me as white? So that way I can get some of the privilege or equality, something that you guys have. But in the same token, I can go to the grocery store with a do-rag and I'm looked at like, what the hell are you about to do in here or something like that. Like Kylie Jenner put a do-rag on her face. Oh, it's so innovative. Oh my God, she's so like fashionable.
Right,
like
she's making a fashion statement.
I'm like, wait. Like, that's where my frustration comes. Like, for me, just doing the things that are naturally black for me, I have to take care of my hair. I have to do these kind of things. Then I'm kind of stereotyped as this, like, aggressive, threatening individual. Let a white person do the same kind of things, hijacked our trends, then it's like, oh, you're innovative, you're different, you're unique, you're fashionable, you're... Like that's shit. I don't even knock his hustle. Shit. Since you guys already take everything from us, can I at least take some of that privilege just for this one time? Hell. Damn.
And the bad thing about it is, no. You're just going to get told no every single time.
No.
And the sad thing about it also is like, I think, well, all right, let me start with a positive. I don't want to be super negative. So I have seen a lot more non-black people step up.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of allies that are out here. And I do think that it's a generational thing. Our generation is more prone to having that empathetic stance and understanding that, Black lives matter and it doesn't mean that other lives don't matter. It's just that, this is the statement that we're making because of the current state of the country. So I'll give a shout out to the people that have been allies, because even the protest that we went to, there were a ton of white people out there. And even if you were out there just to be curious and find out like what is this about, and just like interact with people and try to like pick their brain, I'm all for that too. Because like you gotta rub shoulders with people to understand them. Because the way that we get information, and it's crazy because one thing that I've learned not to do is do the whole Facebook politician arguing thing. Is because like, yo, you're wasting your breath.
Have you guys did that ever?
I used to do that all the time. I had time back in the day.
Hannah, you did that? Did you argue with people on Facebook?
No.
Oh,
first off, Ty don't even get online. Ty posts soap
Say.
and then sign off. Yo, let me quick sidebar about Ty.
Oh my God.
I don't know what she does throughout her day. It is her business. All I know is if my text message isn't sent before 8:30 a.m., I'm not getting a response until 6:30 a.m. the next day. I have a 2-hour window every day. It's between 6:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. After that, no text message response, no telephone call response, and she will not check her IG DMs.
Oh my goodness.
Am I lying?
No.
oh my goodness.
You my dog though. But
So unbothered.
yeah, right, sure, care. But like, yo, like seriously, like I used to be online and I would just go back and forth with people. But then you have to realize like when most of the people that are on your friends list are probably your friends. And most of them are like-minded individuals.
Absolutely.
So for you to be sitting here putting all this energy into writing post after post, going back and forth with the few people who don't agree with you, you're not going to get anywhere because you're not going to change their views by posting a paragraph online, no matter how many facts you come with, because their timeline is full of like-minded individuals like them, and they're getting information that is completely opposite of the information that you're looking at.
And they're looking
It's
at it
all
facts too.
yeah, and they're just looking at the social world that they've created, the same way you have. So there's no point in going back and forth. So you have to literally be in the same room with people, rub shoulders with people, have intimate conversations, have a conversation where you're not defensive and you're speaking to them with an open mind and an open heart for you to make any progress. And even then, you're probably not going to make a lot of progress. But that's your best chance at it.
So you're suggesting, which I agree because research supports that. A lot of the research I do is on cultural identity and cultural kind of inclusions and multiculturalism. It always suggests that cultural immersion is the best way that you can learn how to identify more with other cultures or become more aware with other cultures, for example. That is being in that culture and whatever their traditions, their norms is, and experiencing it with them. So,
Right.
like, which I agree. There was because I'm going to play devil's advocate. I believe in this 100%. There is this girl that I'm school with. We go to school together, white girl, very, very socially conscious, very just the kind of ally that you would ideally want. She had told me like there was this time when I was getting my undergraduate degree where there was a Black women's support group going on campus. And it was just advertised. So she said, "Oh, I want to go because I want to begin this kind of cultural immersion experience where she wants to start to understand Black experiences and things like that," which I commend her for because it was a predominantly white institution. So obviously she's coming there with more privilege just in that setting right there alone, not just her being white. They are literally the minority there. So, but she said when she came there, respectfully engaging, and this woman, I don't look at her as any kind of liar because she has nothing to gain from it. So she was just like, I went there, but they had told me I wasn't welcome there, even just to observe, because my very presence is a threat. And I'm like, is this what you guys experience when you try to immerse yourself in our culture? We kind of tell you to get out, which makes sense because we're responding out of trauma of what you guys did to us. So that is like both responses are right. I don't want you here and I want to learn. Both of them are right. But it's just like while they're both right, nothing is getting any kind of progress done. That is a great opportunity
Right.
in my mind for her to learn more and for them to actually show like, no, that's not right. This is how we are. These are the experiences that we have. These are the norms. These are the belief systems that we have. But then on the same token, no, this is finally a time where we can be around people like us and vent and talk. I feel as though that your presence is going to threaten this one opportunity. So no. So it's like, what do you guys think about that kind of situation? Because that's just a microcosm of what actually happens.
Right. Well, I want to kind of divert it because of that specific situation. So Tiana, as a Black woman, when if there's something where there's a collective of other Black women, yourself included, to come together to be vulnerable, to discuss things, to just kind of put yourself in a position where you're relating and you're getting some answers that you need. Is that a space where you would welcome a white woman?
Great question.
That is a great question. I think, me personally, I think that I would be able to have an open mind to allowing her into that space so she can learn. And I think that's just because it goes back, I guess, with empathy. I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm here to learn from everybody. I'm here to embrace everyone's culture. So for me, I would be open to that. And someone who honestly would want to just learn and embrace my culture and take from me and understand and want to learn, I wouldn't take that from someone. I absolutely wouldn't take that from someone. I would be open to having that person embrace that. I just think that it's touchy and it's hard because there's so much trauma behind that. And I think especially in the space that we're in right now, I guess like I'm also feeling that trauma and experiencing that. And I guess it's a little triggersome for me because, well, Chris, my background when it comes to that. So I guess for me, just learning about my own trauma and things that I've experienced in the past when it's come to maybe I guess experiencing racism and self-hate. I don't know. I guess.
So I have like a follow up to that because I can't, I particularly, brought it to Black women and, so I can't speak to your experience. I will make it very clear that on this podcast, a man will not speak on behalf of women. We have done that for long enough. Patriarchy is real. And you know what I'm saying? We're not going to do that. So I would respect if y'all allowed her to stay. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have a bone or a side to pick in that. But one thing that I do think that I would have an opinion on is something I would ask you is outside of letting them attend, would you let them participate?
I don't think I would want them to participate. I think I would allow them there to strictly embrace what I guess we're discussing, what's being said, so they can take something from it. But to actually have them participating, I don't think I would be comfortable with that at all. I wouldn't be comfortable with that at all.
And I feel you, and I'll bring it back down to just a general thing. So that's one thing that I feel strongly about is I'm definitely open to, if you want to learn, who am I to tell you that you can't learn about somebody else's culture, especially if we're asking you to be empathetic. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to experience it for you to actually care. So I don't mind inviting whether you're white, Chinese, Jewish, Latino, whatever the case may be. Yes, you can experience, something that we may have that is for us, but as far as participation goes, I would like for you to take a back seat, because for that's one of the things that the trauma of just being Black is, we always have to deal with, is this going to be taken from us?
Right.
Is this going to be hijacked and the narrative be changed? Is this going to be something that becomes whitewashed and rewritten in history? Because even one of the things that white people often do, and I don't say white people as a negative thing. I have plenty of white friends, and I hope they are listening and they don't get turned off. But like, a lot of things that I feel like white people do is they also feel like they can dictate who we should listen to and who we should follow, because it's even in our school system. When we were growing up, and I think I said this on a previous show, we were always taught about Dr. Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
We were pretty much taught to worship this man, but we never talked about Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
And if he came up, he was looked at as a tyrant who was part of this radical movement, and then we just moved on. And I feel like that was something that was intentionally done, because Martin Luther King was about nonviolence. He was about turning the other cheek. He was about, even though he was strong in his stances, he wasn't fighting back. He wasn't about violence. But if you have this Black man that's saying, no, if someone puts their hands on you, you put your hands back on them. If they shoot you, you shoot them back. Oh no, we can't teach about that. But then you grow up and you're like, nah, Malcolm had the right idea. Wasn't nothing wrong with what he was teaching. He wasn't crazy. And he did change his theology, where he thought all white people were bad. And then he was like, no, I will work with white people. So, but you don't learn none of that in school. So to bring that back to, the whole participation thing, I am very apprehensive to allow that to happen, because it can go negative in so many different ways. And it's high time for Black people to take charge of their own communities, their own economy, their own decision making as it pertains to different, things that take place as far as voting, who's going to be in office, and laws that are going to be passed. So yes, you can come experience it, so that you will get a better understanding of why things are the way they are, or why we have the stance that we have, or why the way we vote is. But as far as you participating, no. Now, if you want to approach me afterwards and, give some input that I may be able to think about and then take back to the Black delegation, that's cool. But in the moment, nah, I'm not with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all want to put a fork in that?
I think that was good. I think it was good.
Cool. Well, we got one more thing
Okay.
to cover. And that is generational curses. Because I feel like that's something that a lot of people are focusing on now. And I want to get y'all insight on, how you feel about them. The severity that you think they, take in your life, or the importance they take in your life, and, how we can overcome it. So we can, either one of y'all can start. It don't make a difference. But as far as in your life, do you feel like there's any generational curses that you deal with in your current family now?
I don't, and I don't want to disrespect my family, because while there are some generational curses, for that usage of that term, there's a lot of generational blessings that I think have happened with my family.
Sure.
So I think that has happened more abundantly than the generational curses. But for this discussion, I think the generational curses that I have seen, just one of them, has been this experience of generational trauma, more transgenerational trauma, meaning that my grandmother experienced a certain level of inflicted trauma from another person. And that trauma shaped her decision making and her attitude, which by the time she had kids, she also passed some of those kind of, like her behaviors in response to the trauma was traumatic to my mother or something like that. And by the time she became more aware of it, that my grandmom, that is, then my mom was already old enough, and she was too old for it to be changed that much. The damage had already been done. And I could say some of that thing is happening to me too, or when I was younger. But I think just trauma, and I would say more of, for light terms, physical abuse. For example, I grew up getting my as beat, like
Mm-hmm.
beat. And my mom recently in the last few years have kind of like apologized. She's like, damn, I did not want to beat y'all growing up. I really didn't. But like your mom said, you better beat them kids. You better beat them kids. And I remember you guys saying how bad of an experience it was. Like you hated getting beat and just to play, kind of like research shows that doesn't work. It doesn't work. And you can say like white researchers did it. No, black researchers did it too. Like it shows that it doesn't work. What works is timeout from reinforcements, being taken away from all those good things that you like and actually sitting in that loneliness and constantly sticking to that schedule every time they do something rather than hitting them. Hitting them is going to make them give you what you want right there in the moment, but then it's also going to make them sneaky and do it behind the back. And then some people always play devil's advocate, like, oh, that didn't happen for me. Yeah, that's because it didn't happen to you. Does it not happen for the wide majority of people or the people, or just because it happens for the group of people that you know? What about for the most majority? Yeah, it probably does happen. So for me, it's been that I plan, if I get blessed with children, not to beat my kids. I hope that I stick to that kind of mindset because I don't want whatever after effects of the generational trauma that I hope that I process right now in my adulthood to kick in when I become an adult. Like it's different. Just beat them. And I don't want that to happen.
Facts. No, I agree. How about you, Ty?
I feel like the generational trauma that I'm experiencing, I guess, is more of like a mental thing. I guess it's more of what I experienced growing up as a kid of being seen, not heard. Not allowed to express feelings or emotions as a kid, like the attitude. And that's the same way that my mother was raised. So that's something that I'm breaking now and being able to show emotions, being able to talk up for myself, just, those things that I experience, I'm currently trying to break. So that definitely has been a difficult experience for me. Having conversations with my mother as to why certain situations when I was a kid played out that way, or us just, talking about different things from my childhood. As I've gotten older, I've seen that she's also experiencing and understanding her own trauma and talking to my grandmother about her trauma. So that then allowed us to have our own conversation. So, yeah, it definitely has been. I've saw a great reaction from it from my mother. So, yeah, it's definitely something that I've been dealing with, and it's giving me growing pains for sure.
And I think that's like important what you brought up, where it's like, your mother, even at her age, is still, figuring out her traumas with her mother.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because like it to me, this whole generational thing is not like, all right, I hit 30, so now like if I didn't solve it, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm stuck the way I am. Like these things that are considered generational traumas or curses or whatever they may be, they're ongoing and they affect you every single day. And like what you said, Ty, was important as far as like, the conversations that you're having now and how you weren't able to express yourself as a child. I can't speak to the white experience, so I don't know how white people deal with their children, but I do feel like as a general consensus, black families do have that approach of you stay in a child's place,
Right.
you do what I tell you to do, and you don't talk back.
Yeah.
And that creates, and that creates like this wall that almost becomes impenetrable because I don't know what to do with any of these emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the emotions, like you put them to the side, but they don't go away. Like you have these issues and they carry on for years and years, and then they start to manifest themselves in all these other ways that are unhealthy, where you may develop some type of addiction or dependency or something else because that's what you were using to cope with the fact that you couldn't have a vulnerable conversation with your parents.
Right.
Like I still to this day remember the first time me and my mom had a real conversation, and like we both cried and everything. I was like probably 17, 18, around that age, when you start like really feeling yourself like, oh, I'm an adult, I'm grown. And Like, we literally yelled at each other. Like, I never raised my voice at my mom, like, because I was taught not to do it. My dad would like beat the brakes off me. But like, we were yelling. And then once we calmed down, we realized that it wasn't anger, it was all hurt. It was all pain of things that we just never said to each other. Probably my mom may not have said it to my dad. I never said anything to my siblings. It was just stuff that we just was keeping in, and it was making our relationship difficult because we couldn't have, or we didn't have, a regular sit down adult conversation where we communicated. Because there was, and I think that's something that like needs to be broken down. Like, when I have kids, like, I do want to have more of a line of communication. I used to mess with my cousin Taheem, not to like ramble or whatever, but like, I'm thinking about him, and we used to mess with him like, yo, this dude like really think he his like kid's friend. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we used to like make jokes about it. But he has 3 very respectable young men who I don't feel like they lie to him at all. I mean, they may do like the normal, I'm a teenager, I'm going to be here, but I ain't really there type thing. But as far as like, communicating things, they have a great relationship. They, can go to their mom, they can go to their dad. So like, why in our community is it like frowned upon to have a somewhat friend? I know you have to keep the parent-child dynamic, but somewhat of a friendship with your children as well, because that makes them more comfortable and prone to coming to you if there's an issue, instead of looking for answers in the outside world where they're going to get all the wrong answers anyway.
Right.
Well, I think you made a really good point there, Chris, because you said, why is it frowned upon in our community? And I think one of the things, because I think that's a very dynamic question. There's a lot of different factors that play into an answer for that. It's not just one thing alone. I think one of the things that I kind of have learned is that power differentials like within relationships, meaning that the parent has more power, has more control than the kid. At times, for some parents, are so seductive. Like, I like being in control of something,
especially if you never felt that before.
Especially if you never felt it before. Thinking about it, typically, some of these individuals, if they're Black, if they're even further marginalized, low SES, typically females also have less privilege than males. So if you combine all these other marginalized, other cultural factors into being Black too, power differential might become a seductive kind of experience for that person. It feels good telling my kid what they cannot do and what they can't do, and actually seeing them follow it. It feels good for not having my own kind of bull crap checked upon when I do that. And I think a lot of parents have a hard time admitting that, or don't even have an increased awareness of that kind of unconscious feeling that they're having. Like, I like this kind of control I have over it. Add a few more kids into that, and add a man into that, or add a woman into that too. And that kind of situation where perhaps, because I've also seen some of those, the like, let's say a 2-parent household, one parent also tends to be a little bit more docile than the other parent too. So that power differential might extend past the children too. So, and that's what I find that could contribute. One of the things that could contribute to it. And I think that is unfortunate, because it's like one of like the 7 deadly sins, I would say. It's like you finally get a hold of that. Oh, you're not going to let go of that. You're going to take that
right.
As soon as I check you with as many facts as I possibly can, and I'm in my adulthood, I'm letting you know that was wrong, and I'm showing you that I'm treating my kids differently, and I have a better relationship with my kids than I do with you. You still don't want to face it, do you?
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think what is very discouraging as well, and this is where we kind of gotta fix ourselves so that we don't continue on with the generational traumas, is a lot of times when you become of age and you become of a certain amount of knowledge, and you approach the root or the cause of the trauma, or the situation itself, you don't usually get the response that you want. Like, it's not a thing where, like, if I had what I would consider a trauma, with a parent, like, I'm going to sit down and be like, hey, so this is what you did that made me feel this way. This is why can you break it down for me? It's not like they're going to be like, oh yeah, so this is what happened. I shouldn't have did this. And you know, hopefully we can just all move on, and, you know, everything's great. It usually don't work out that way. Usually there's like a defensive thing that comes up, like, well, I did the best I could. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, you didn't die. You know what I'm saying? Like, you turned out pretty good, right? So I didn't do a bad job. And it's like, I'm not bringing these things to you to make you feel like you did a bad job, or that I'm unappreciative, or that, you know, you ruined me or something like that. It's because I'm looking for some type of answer that I couldn't get on my own. So I'm coming to you, since you're the source of it, to get some understanding. Because if I can get some understanding and clarity, then maybe like my perspective will change.
Right.
And I just don't feel like, you know, that it happens that way. And I think that's where we have to, you know, accept the responsibility of, you know, kind of fixing ourselves.
Yeah, you definitely got to heal your inner child yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely have to do that. And then I think you also need to recognize too that I think as children, we look at our parents as like superheroes.
Right.
So they can't do no wrong, and they're always supposed to do right. And then as adults, we have to realize too that, you know, some of them were children themselves.
They were all children at one point.
Right.
I'm messing with you.
Well, I'm saying as parents, they may have been children,
Right.
you know, parents, children raising children.
Mm-hmm. Got you.
So, you know, so that says a lot. You just have to remember that they were human too.
Right. Right. And people do what they know.
Right.
So if you were beat your entire life growing up, and that was the only form of corrective action that was taken in the home, that's all they know. They don't know how to, okay, they lied to me. Maybe I should sit down and see why they felt like they had to lie instead of telling me the truth.
Do they have the capacity to even do that, to be honest?
Right, exactly. Like, they like, all they know is go get the belt.
Yeah. And
go get a switch.
You know, perhaps you guys did say something that I'm wondering if this is because healing isn't, you know, you might not be responsible for your pain, but you're definitely
pain, but you're responsible for your healing. Yeah. Go ahead, talk about it, Tony.
but one of the things. So so if you're looking, you can live by that quote, but would you can't do that. Have like, you know, live by that kind of mantra and then also go to search for some type of healing in your parents, because you're starting to realize that, okay, maybe I can get some answers for you, but you, like you said, you have to be okay with not getting a response that you're kind of predicting and expecting to get. And if that response or that predicting, like if you're not getting that kind of response and it's hurting you even more, that means showing you that you have a lot of work to do with yourself now, because you went there to search for some type of answers from your parent because you're having a hard time answering it for yourself, which is reasonable, but have you put in any kind of meaningful work to heal yourself? And I think, you know, us as a community, we might not be connected with all the resources, external and internal resources to really help combat some of the negative effects of this kind of trauma. So we look at it for that superhero kind of person in our life. Like you go to your mom or you go to your dad, like, I went to you for everything. You can't even answer me why the hell you did this. And they're like, no, not really. I can't, because I don't think I did anything wrong or something like that. And you're like, well, now I'm stuck back at phase one because I can't help myself right now or I don't know how to help myself. And obviously you aren't aware to admit. And even if they do admit it, is that going to automatically heal all your crap? Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. And it really is one of those things where you do look at them in that superhero way, and you also look at them like, you know, they don't do any wrong. They wouldn't tell you a lie. And I think the letdown is what we have to learn how to cope with better.
Right.
Is understanding like we're all flawed. Like your parents have flaws. Like, yes, they probably lied to you about something. There's probably something that they didn't tell you about a family member, but most times, like, it's to protect you, or at least they think that they're protecting you. So it's one of those things where I feel like once you gain some type of empathy for your parents as well, I think that helps.
always comes back to that word, that empathy word. It really,
Yeah.
it's, and it's just you're putting all the work back on yourself, which where it should be, but doing that work, that's why it's called labor. That is emotional labor to do. So you're going to get tired and you're going to get frustrated, but you have to still keep figuring out and exploring ways to continue that healing process. And I think that's where maybe a lot of people, including myself, get lost at in that process.
Right. Yeah, and I do want to make sure that that's being known as well, is that I'm talking about my situation. Like, I'm not projecting my stuff on anyone else. Like, this is like, I feel like this is a personal journey that everybody has. And some people have great relationships with their parents and like nothing ever really has that trauma that they have to deal with. And that's amazing. And God bless. And hopefully you can continue generational blessings as opposed to generational traumas. But for for us who do have, some type of traumas that we're dealing with, like it's
And there are other
it's
kind of
rough.
generational curses. I like that we focused a lot on of transgenerational trauma, but there's like financial curses that wealth inequality, bad choices in mates that you choose when you want to date because it's been modeled that this is the way that your mom dates, this is the way that your dad dates, these are the people that they choose. And all of those can be equally destructive to your life, just as bad as trauma can be too, because they're teaching you behaviors and modeling you behaviors that you think are healthy behaviors, and they're not.
Now, really quick, not, and you don't need to specify if it's negative or positive, but do you find yourself following a lot of the path that's already been laid by your parents as it pertains to things like relationships and finances?
You want to answer that question, Toriana?
I would like to think I'm going in a different path,
Okay.
but I don't necessarily think that that's negative.
Yeah, I was saying it could be negative or positive.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Positive.
Yeah.
So in what way do you now, are you speaking of financially or relationship wise?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Both. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so
I guess I would say like I'm not doing it maybe the way my mother would like me to, but it's not negative.
right. Yeah, so like with you, like from the business standpoint, like she doesn't have her own business, right?
Right. She doesn't know.
Right. So yeah, like even with stuff like that, it's the like I'm sure your goal is the same as hers to reach financial freedom and not have to worry about living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
But like you said, your route is different than hers.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like with me, I look at things as, once again, not negative or positive, but if I see something that you did, even if it was good, I'm looking at ways to do it better.
Right.
So though I see similarities I'll use my dad as an example. Like my dad had the same job for mad long. Like he got one job as an adult and he just rocked out and he's still there to this day. Like he's changed positions, but he's still with the same company. Whereas me, I've had 11 jobs because I just switch jobs. That's what I do. Now I'm comfortable at the one I'm at now, but even in my current state now where I'm making good money and like it seems stable, I don't know if I'm going to be here for the next 20 years. Like that's not even something that I think is really that realistic because the job market changes so much. There's not those kind of jobs where you just stay somewhere the same way that the previous generations did. So I see similarities in the respect of like now I'm trying to stay at a job long term, but I was talking to Tony yesterday, like I'm trying to make myself just more useful and well versed in multiple areas so that if something ever does happen to my job, I can make moves elsewhere or I'll have experience elsewhere where it won't be as difficult for me to be hired.
Yeah. It's kind of like in our conversation that we had previously, it's kind of like there's been this trend switch, and like, older adults or like, the generation that came before us, they were more committed to companies or to brands. And we are more committed, not to companies necessarily, but we're more committed to our own careers and our own career advancement. So we don't really care too much about what a company can offer us per se for long term. It's like, what can I get from this company, and then advance and then move on to another kind of higher goal, ideally. It's just challenging because like that kind of motivation, that kind of drive that we have don't always match the motivation drive of our parents, and therefore our two belief systems are going to conflict. They're like, you keep bouncing around, you can't stay somewhere. I think, well, it's like, well, it's a different ball game, and that is no longer enticing to me. I don't want to be with a company for 20-25 years. That sounds awful for you at your time. Thank God you could stay with a company for 20-25 years. You can make your money, you can move up, and that is great. I don't want that. So like, I know for me, with the decisions that I've watched my parents make, it hasn't really shaped. Well, I have a unique decision. I have a unique response because the aspects of who I am and my identity it conflicts with a lot of my family's ideals already. You're this outspoken gay Black, male in this family, and we just typically don't care for that kind of identity. So everything I did was kind of a rebellion. It didn't really follow everything that, typically my mom, grandmom, dad, uncles did. It was kind of looked at weirdly or, kind of condemningly. It wasn't until I started to get these kind of superficial images of success. Oh my God, you see Tony's doing that. Then that's when they start to buy in and want to kind of, like, well, that's what you're doing. That decision is good. You weren't on the side with any of my decisions before. So I made my own decisions by myself. Get what I'm trying to say? Rather than like trying to look for you for guidance, because nothing about your life seemed ideal for me. I didn't want anything that you had. So that's why I say it's kind of hard for me to answer that question.
Right.
Got you. All right. Well, I definitely, think that, all the different topics that we touched on, we got some great information out of each. And I do, once I post the episode, I do want people to, like, as they listen, to like reach out to us. You can hit up people on their individual page. I'll have all that stuff linked, or you can just like go to the actual podcast page, which is Complicated Simplicity Podcast, on IG. Shameless plug. So like, I really want people to like actually engage. And if you have questions, that you want us to answer or discuss, definitely reach out. But yeah, like, this is, I think, a great starting point for season 2, because literally, not to be corny and do a play on words, but like, we're in a new season. And there's other, you just gonna laugh after I said I wasn't trying to be funny. but like, I really
we're in a new season.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, yo, I got bars. But like, no, seriously, like, we're in a new season, and I want people to like feel comfortable discussing like what they're going through, because if you're anything like me, you're alone. Or even if you're surrounded by people, a lot of times that's not even like the comfortable setting to have discussions. So you may feel alone for that reason as well. So we're going to continue to do this, with different topics every single week, and just pretty much go from there and try to, build as much as we can so that we can have open discussions and honest discussions. And yeah, before I close out, Ty, Tony, anything y'all want to say before, what I'm saying, we let the people get back to their life and before they have to hear from us in another week? Besides you giggling.
Go ahead, Ty. You go first.
Oh my goodness. Tony, go ahead.
Well, I think that's what Chris said is really important. I would like, this is a dialogue, and just because we're being broadcasted doesn't mean that any other voices don't matter. Like, we encourage diversity of thought. If you don't believe, you don't agree with something to say, then say it, and that is completely welcomed and encouraged. So I like that you're making that the kind of norm and the kind of part of this brand, because I think that is what helps foster critical thinking, is welcoming different voices to the table that you don't necessarily agree and making them just as meaningful as the other voices. So I like that. I agree.
Absolutely.
I'm
Well,
here for that too.
oh, thanks.
Nigga!
Listen, I'm nervous, okay? I'm
About
like
what?
over here like,
So we also going to work on Ty's nervousness.
sorry guys.
Nah, you good. But yeah, so that was the episode 1 of season 2. And yeah, we'll holler at y'all another time. Y'all be blessed.